Hello, Minot sports fans. Good day to you. Welcome back to a new episode of the Minot Sports Podcast. We are on to episode 4 into the third season. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. I am your host for each and every episode, colehcclem, Jr., professional communication major here on the beautiful campus of Minot State University. And I want to welcome you guys in to a brand new episode. It has been a long time, so we have a lot to catch up on, but we're going to try something a little different today. We're just going to go briefly through, as my iPad is going off here. We're actually recording in the newly updated podcast room inside our professional communication department. All props to Lee Johnson for adding in a whole new desk setup, brand new mics everywhere, a whole different environment for the host to spin around and talk to each and every one of his or her guests. And what a game changer it is. And we have a new iPad installed in case we want to do actually a video podcast. So that is always an option. And we're definitely looking to do that in the future for you Minot sports fans. But without further ado, let's get right on into it. Again, I am colehcclem, your podcast host today. Like I said, we have a lot of topics to catch up on. It's been a long time since we recorded. We've mostly been talking with guests, which we thank them for their time with us. But a little different today. We're just going to kind of change things up around here. We're just going to briefly swift through a whole bunch of teams and how they did in their respective seasons. It's kind of a brief description in a way, just so we can get all caught up and have ourselves in a perfect spot, have ourselves in a good spot at least heading into, as we're almost in the spring season. I'm actually recording this, folks, on February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day, by the way, to all you guys out there. Hope it is a good one indeed. Before we get started, as always, a big shout out to our sponsors. We have KMSU TV and radio as the studio sponsor. We are now recording, like I said, in the brand new podcast room. It is amazing. Credit to Lee Johnson, our broadcast director or specialist, if you will. We thank them, along with Peyton Barch Photography. Kind of slow going a little bit, but soon there will be a few more action shots from him. Hopefully we can get that picked up and running off the ground here pretty soon, but we want to thank him as well. And nothing's set in stone right now, but in the future, we're hoping to add some more sponsors. And if any of you guys out there, any business proposals, any of you guys that are interested, don't be afraid to reach out to me via email, cole.clementich@ndeus.edu or colehcclem@hotmail.com. I will start posting those on the descriptions of each and every one of my videos. I don't have an official email for the podcast yet, but that could be in the works. But again, if you guys want to start up a sponsorship deal, not trying to endorse myself here or in any way, shape, or form, but again, I'm all ears. I'll be willing to listen, and anything's fair game. So, but yeah, like I said, we thank KMSU TV and radio and Peyton Barch for their partnerships. On today's show, we've been solely focused on guests this season, and it's now time that we should pick this back up. We are going to just quickly recap some of the fall sports teams in Minot athletics. I know it's kind of outdated, but it is a must that we get these guys or girls all covered. And so starting us off here, Minot High football, finishing the season with 2 wins, and I believe in the 9-game season, went 2-7, ultimately losing 28-6 versus the West Fargo Cheyenne Mustangs in the first round of the playoffs. Just kind of my overall take on it. They found their quarterback, Jaden Sparrow. He's athletic. He can lead a team. It's just that I've been saying this a few times. It's just him and his receivers. The offense needs to get on the same page. Just find a way to put all the pieces of the puzzle together But Sparrow, yep, they found their quarterback. I think Sparrow's going to be the guy to do it, the guy that's going to lead them. Like I said, he's athletic. He's built to be that guy, can be a great leader on this team, can really push the ball down the field. They found their quarterback, just got to find a way to put it all together with the receivers. As far as the defense, not too concerned. Special teams, same deal. They played really well, especially holding their own against a superb West Fargo Cheyenne team, who I think ultimately won the state championship in football this year, if I'm not mistaken. So credit to them, and credit to Minot High for sticking along for the ride. They actually made the postseason. I know I said 2 wins. Yeah, they did make the postseason. It's all for the new division format. That's just how it seemed to work, how it went in their favor. One of the East teams, I think Davies, lost a few too many games against teams in their own conference, and I think that's what kind of led to it. I don't know the full story, but I think there could be some more discussions to be had in the future with the NDHSAA officials or whoever the higher-ups are, whoever it could be. So, but Minot High, I'm excited for their future. I think there's nothing to worry about their defense and special teams. They found their quarterback, just got to figure out how to put it all together on offense. Because I think once they find a way, they can do something, they can be something really special moving forward. Sticking with football, as for Bishop Bryan, no concerns at all. Just ultimately lost to what had to be, at least, the best team in the state, the Hillsborough Central Valley Burros. At the time they were, but ultimately Kindred won the state title in that division, or in that class ranking. And, I mean, nothing to be ashamed of if you're Bishop Bryan. They're a competitive team. I mean, unfortunately, you want to get there to the title game. They've been there before. They've almost done it. They've done it in the past, I believe, but they're a contending team. I have no concerns about their future. A bright, young core that's going to really blossom, and they're still going to be good for years to come, and I have no concerns about them. Just that their time wasn't this year, and their time's coming. So I think should be no problem with them. Roger Coleman's a great head coach, graduating a lot of veterans, but they have a core set in place. They're still going to be a fun team to watch. Just that it was not their time this year, but hopefully in the coming years, they're going to stay competitive. I have no concerns about them whatsoever. For the volleyball teams, Minot High at first looking like they were turning a corner this season, and they definitely did for most of that season until just a gigantic collapse in the West Region play-in game versus the Watford City Wolves. I mean, up 2-0 and you end up losing 3-2. That's a very hard pill to swallow, and ultimately Sherry Carlson is out as the Majets volleyball head coach. We'll get into details more about their new head coach in an upcoming episode, but it seemed like they turned a corner, but when it came down to crunch time, they could not convert. And it just is quite unfortunate how it unfolded. And I think just overall, a disappointing finish for the Minot High girls. You know, they were playing a much better all-around game. They had strengthened both sides of the court, even better communication, but again, just did not come to fruition for them. And who knows? I can't be all down on them, as they have shown flashes this year. I wouldn't be surprised if the narrative kind of waits to change next year. So I'll be curious to see. I think we'll all be curious to see how that turns out. It looked like they were changing the course, but it ended up being fool's gold, and who knows? Like I said, it could happen next year. We'll just have to wait and see. I think they do carry on that momentum. I just don't know when. So, but yeah, unfortunate ending to their season. Tough for the seniors, but I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the near future. As for RE Deemers and Bishop Bryan, my goodness, what an upset in the Region 6 tournament. Bishop Bryan overcoming all odds against the, 7-time defending Region 6 champions, slaying the beast and taking down RE Deemers in 5 sets. Also, mind you, being down 2-0 with the reverse sweep coming back to win it 3-2. This was unexpected, I'm sure, by everyone. This is a Bishop Bryan team that has awakened from a long slumber. Well, maybe not a long slumber, but a slumber that was long enough that they felt the impact and they said, enough's enough. Their athleticism, their strong front court presence that featured Sydney Upton, and the size that Berkeley Lundeen brings, and the skill with Maggie Rovig, not only did they improve, they're sending a message to the entire Region 6 that change is happening. Change within the landscape is currently happening inside the Region 6, and they are putting them on notice. And for RE Deemers, just kind of let off the gas pedal. They had Bishop Bryan on the ropes. They had him, but it was another situation. Just could not get that final kill, that final spike, that final ace, whatever it was. I couldn't quite watch it unless I think, if I recall, I was not able to watch it as it was during my 3 night classes last semester, I believe. But whatever it was, they just couldn't find a way to finish, and Bishop Bryan was determined. They were all determined, and they weren't phased at all. So that's amazing that what Bishop Bryan was able to produce. And, tough loss for RE Deemers as well. And, having still been the 7-time defending Region 6 champions, having that, a little bit of that pressure, I don't want to say was too big for them because they've been there, they've done that. Just that Bishop Bryan had the want more, and they were more determined to change the fortune, or change the outcome rather. But I think with both teams, we're seeing a resurgence with Bishop Bryan, and I'll have more on it later as we talk Bishop Bryan girls basketball, as they're looking phenomenal. I think the whole athleticism, the multi-sport athlete, that aspect is really coming into play. I'll have more on that later, but that's key for Bishop Bryan right now. As for RE Deemers, they're still well coached. They're still going to have that same core, a few graduating seniors, but they're going to have a few of that same young core returning next year, starting with Aubrey Greedle, of course. Things are going to look a little different for them, but never count them out because, like I said, they've been in this night in, night out. They've been through changes. They've had some struggles at times, but they've been able to persevere through adversity. So, like I said, with Bishop Bryan, I think there's an awakening that we now see a full-on change in the landscape. They could be a threat in the District 12 and Region 6. RE Deemers, I think, is still going to be up there. I would not be concerned about them at all. But we have a new dog in the fight, and that's, they've been there before, just not of this magnitude. Unfortunately, Bishop Bryan losing to Delax Burlington in the region championship. Still, this sent shockwaves. This is massive, what we just witnessed. So, again, props to Bishop Bryan, props to RE Deemers again on a great season, and it's going to be real interesting to see how this all unfolds in not just next year, but in the coming years after that. Let's turn our attention to Minot State. I think for the volleyball team, that's just not much else you can do. It's a really tough conference, probably one of the, if not the toughest conference for a lot of sports, the NSIC in all of Division II. Just not a lot of winning. They had one in there, I believe, and that was against a team that was also basement dwellers, but again, there's just not much they could have done. Dana Cordova Jacobson is out as Minot State's head coach, and I think the message with this team is that they're rebuilding, and we're going to find a way to bring it from the ground up. And so I think that's really all the best you can do with a rebuilding team is set a new standard, set some guidelines, start setting up a brand new culture, having some players buy in on new ideas almost, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see if what this new coach can bring. Obviously, in the press release, they said buying in intentions are not to win a championship right away, but rebuilding, set a new standard, setting up a new culture. Just take it baby steps towards the right direction. And we'll see how it turns out eventually. So for the football team, you could say it was a step back for them, going with 3 wins last year or rather the year before. They did not play last year because of COVID. But with 3 wins a couple years ago, they were looking like they were on the up and up, showing a lot of promise, and they took a step back this year, back down to 2 wins. I believe a 2-9 overall record, although one of the wins coming on senior day in their final home game of the regular season. So kind of a nice little story there, but they were just derailed. I don't want to make excuses, obviously, and I'm sure they don't want to make excuses. And they were playing well. Don't get me wrong. They were playing well with certain guys that were forced into situations that they probably didn't want to be in, but they were derailed with injuries and some to big names, including Ben Belinsky, Isaiah Bigby, Corey Kerrigan even. Like, they had to go through some of that adversity of their own. And the good news with them is that they made steps on offense. They could really score. I mean, it was kind of the same deal as the last year and the year before. Kind of a slow start, but then they gradually get better as the season goes on. You kind of want to avoid that, but at the same time, it is encouraging. But one bright spot for the team was they were able to score down the stretch. Like, they could put the ball in the end zone at times when it needed to. And other times they didn't, obviously, when they were playing other good teams. But at times when they needed to score, they did. And they did that quite a few times. And, that's a sign of encouragement. The only thing is that the defense still kind of finding its way a little bit. Kind of going into the season, it was looking like the defense, just kind of how I got into perspective, hearing from certain players and or coaches, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but going into the season, it felt like the defense was going to be the sledgehammer for this team that would pull the weight and just pound its way through. But instead, it was the offense that carried a lot of that weight. And in fact, more so 50-50, because the defense still made some big plays here and there. But the offense, they were able to score a lot of points, but the defense gave up a lot of points at the same time. But the offense is running in a good direction. Just what can you do with this defense to, just kind of play just average, maybe some average defense, get one extra stop here and there. Obviously, you're not going to win games that are high scoring, or how do I say this? Obviously, games are going to be high scoring, but maybe you do win a game that's like 38-25. If you get just 1 or 2 more stops per game, that could really help down the stretch. Now, is it playoff material? Probably not. They would probably get bounced in the first round, but it is a step in the right direction if you are able to get a stop here and there once or twice in a game. But yeah, it was just kind of a role reversal for them. Defense was expected to do well. Offense, not so much. Instead, it was the other way around. But yeah, football, again, a nice send-off for the seniors, finishing on a win at home versus Upper Iowa, 17-14. That was on Pink Weekend, 28-20 versus Concordia St. Paul. That game was the senior day game. But yeah, sending the seniors off on a high note, I mean, you couldn't really have asked for anything better from them. So, as for Minot State soccer, for how much they've been throwing the rebuild, the R word, rebuild around, they did not look like a rebuilding team this year. They had a resurgence this year, and what a season it was. Unfortunately, couldn't get the job done in the first round versus Concordia St. Paul, getting shut out 1-0, but nothing to be ashamed of if you're Minot State women's soccer, having gone through a tough season. And they've been good at times. They just went through a rough patch the last time they played, and they just they pressed all the right buttons, and they found chemistry rather quickly, going on a long winning streak. Games where they hardly gave up any goals, and just Sophia Lewis leading the charge, and I know I'm missing another name here. I'll do some research while I'm at it, but they found chemistry early. They found success early, and it was infectious. Obviously, they ran out of gas late in the season, and ultimately, like I said, lost to the Golden Bears from Concordia St. Paul. But nothing to be ashamed of if you're the Beavers soccer team. It is now a step in the right direction, and it's now, how can they build upon this? They're losing Sophia Lewis to graduation, which is going to be tough, really tough to replace, but now that Coach Clements has a year of recruiting under his belt. He can now build it in his own vision, and I think that's going to have a big impact on how they do moving forward, because they have a whole bunch of nice pieces. Chloe Allen was the other one I was thinking of as I'm now pulling up the roster sheet here. Yeah, they're losing some major big-time names to graduation, but Coach knew this was going to happen, and he went out and he got a whole bunch of names that are going to be an impact, like Shea Taylor, already a freshman playing on the defensive side of the ball. She got big-time experience this year. Jordan Tempest, the redshirt freshman, she's going to have a big impact on how this team does. And some of the reserves, and we haven't even gone through the whole list of the redshirts yet, like Brooklyn Casey, the Minot kid, she's going to have an impact for sure. Chanel Limer, Sarah Upton, Lainey Sandberg, who played as a freshman. It's going to be a young team next year, and they might take a step back because they're losing that upfront scoring, and we don't know who's going to replace Sophia. Obviously, Chloe Allen will be back next year, but again, who's going to replace that upfront scoring? We don't know yet, but they're going to be set here. They might take a step back, like I said, but they're going to be set. They have some names that can really bring the heat, and I wouldn't be concerned about them one bit. Just how do they replace that scoring left behind from Sophia Lewis? And also just building off of the type of season that they had. Again, they could step back, but hopefully not at the magnitude that they did the last time they played. So yeah, I would not be concerned about the future of Minot State soccer, and plus Minot is, like we just heard from Coach Fow during the interview back in episode 3, this is a pretty big soccer town. And you have the Minot Soccer Association. They're just building from the ground up of all sorts of soccer, major soccer talent that is. You're not going to find a whole lot of disappointment, to say the least, in this town. There's some sort of success that's going to follow no matter what. But like I said, I'm not concerned about the future of Minot State soccer. We'll talk lastly about the Minot Minotaurs here before we get out. A resurgence. Well, kind of a resurgence. I think that's just kind of the best way to put it. Although they made the playoffs last year, but they had to get in. They just barely had to get in. They were a 4th seed. Out of 4 teams that could clinch in the Central, they were the 4th out of 4. So yeah, they were still good last year, but kind of a surprising resurgence, if you so will, for the Minot Minotaurs under a new regime with brand new head coach Cody Campbell, hard-nosed guy, always getting the best out of his players, and he's a no-nonsense type of guy. And when you go to the games, you know, he expects the best out of his players, and he does get the absolute best out of every player on the team, and that's leading to success on the ice so far, although I'm recording this at the time where they're they are in a bit of a slump, kind of a win-loss ratio as of right now, but they went through a deep slump where they dropped in the division, so it's going to be a tough race ahead, a tough road ahead for the Toros. I'll have more on that later, obviously, but, you know, going on before that, they were winning games left, right, and center, and they were going on winning streaks, and they were holding on to, at a minimum, a top 2 seed inside the Central Division. And, you know, given how at times with Shane Wagner last year, you know, it was just kind of having able to just do enough to get in. I don't think that that's the mindset with Cody Campbell in at the helm. They want to do more. And there's still some unfinished business left from that championship run they went on back in 2017-2018 season, I believe. They got that banner hanging up there, Central Division champions. Yeah, this organization, they're still hungry for that championship, that first championship in franchise history. And, you know, they're not gonna, and their mindset is not anymore, at least not just doing enough, but it's doing more and taking it a step further. And you're seeing it now with this current roster and the new coaching staff. Campbell alongside of former Toros, Jake Howie and Darren Banks. Good to see those guys back here in Minot. But with a new coach comes new ideas, new systems. I've kind of went on this tangent already once. I mean, despite the slip-off recently, that has an impact. New voices in the locker room, that has a lasting impact, and they have fresh new ideas of how, in their vision, they want the team to perform. And this coaching group, along with these players, I think it's safe to say it's really worked out thus far. I mean, hopefully they can turn it around here, but the coaching staff, this brings in, just kind of adding on to it, bringing out the best in all the players. And you can see a noticeable difference on the ice, certainly this year. And yeah, the Toros, you could tell they would play down to their competition at times last year. Again, just doing enough to get by. No, there's more to be had, and that's what they are accomplishing as of late. So again, a little bit of a funk, but it's going to be fun to see where this team goes. And if they do clinch at least a top 2 or top 3 seed in the Central, maybe even get the chance to host a playoff series, that may be a game changer. Because think, if the Toros were in Aberdeen's spot last year, that could have been a huge difference with all those 2,000 some odd fans at every playoff home game. That could be a big difference. That could be a difference maker. Home ice advantage, it's always key. So the Toros this year, they're not settling for just enough. They are searching for more, and they are willing to go above and beyond. So we'll see. It's going to be a very interesting playoff race as they are now spiraling downwards in the division. There's going to be some really tough outs for some of these teams in the Central Division because Bismarck's having a tough year and they're last in the division. You never know. They could still go on a major run, a major playoff push, and they could take this division by storm. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Austin, they've dug themselves a hole so much so that I don't think they can dig themselves out of it. Austin, North Iowa, and of course Aberdeen, they're still those same teams. Obviously, North Iowa's new, but that's a good team. The North Iowa Bulls, that's a good team the Central Division brought in this year. Oh man, it's going to be something to watch. Something really fun to watch for sure. And hopefully the Toros come out with at least a playoff spot this year, given their recent skid. But I'm not too concerned about it because this year, they're yearning for more. With that, Minot sports fans, we're going to take a quick break before I'll let you guys out of here. Just want to remind you to follow the Minot Sports Podcast on social media, Instagram at Minot Sports Podcast, Twitter at Minot Podcast, at the Minot Sports Podcast. That is on Facebook, and for the YouTube username as well. Just search those on your respective devices. We also want to thank KMSU TV and Radio, along with Peyton Barch Photography as some of the main sponsors, and hoping to add a few more here as the year goes along. But the first Minot Sports Podcast recording of the 2022 year, we'll be right back after a quick break.
Welcome to KMSU TV and Radio. You might be asking, what is KMSU? It is the brand name for the MSU Broadcasting Department, home to the many young and aspiring communication majors here at Minot State University. When joining KMSU, there will be many different opportunities to get involved. Students will get a hands-on learning experience in lots of future career fields, like the production of content, being a leader in public relations, operating social media, or even writing and journalism. KMSU is also home to the local public access channel, where students can produce the weekly campus TV show and talk on live radio. From us here at KMSU, we hope to see you along the way.
Alrighty, Minot sports fans, welcome back, and that is going to do it from me today. I know it's kind of a little bit of outdated information, but it is a step in the right direction. Ben, like I said, don't want to make excuses, but super busy with school going on, all other fun activities. Of course, I'm going to be here for you guys covering games, as always, each and every single night. We're going to try and catch up on the social media with all those interviews. If you have gotten an interview from me, whether it's post-game, pre-game, whatever, they will get posted on Instagram eventually, so don't you worry. It's just taking a little bit of extra time than it should be taking, but that's just how it is right now, how I've been operating. But don't you worry, we will get caught up. With that being said, folks, again, be sure to check out the podcast on social media. Also, check out KMSU TV and radio and Peyton Barch Photography on their other platforms as well. Right now, we are in the middle of just getting tournament season underway for Class B basketball and just finishing up for the other sports like hockey and wrestling even. So we'll get caught up on that in the next episode. But Minot sports fans, always want to thank you for joining us, joining the conversation in the everyday world of Minot sports action. Again, I am your host, Cole Clementich, a junior and professional communication major here at Minot State University. This has been episode 4 of the 3rd season of the Minot Sports Podcast. I want to wish you guys a good rest of your day. Take care as always.